Today we have some very special guests with us. Arvind Gupta, partner at Mayfield and founder and venture advisor at IndieBio SOSV, along with IndieBio's new managing director, Bronson. So what just happened? Arvind moved over to Mayfield, Poe became managing director, and an alliance between SOSV and Mayfield was formed to build the Genesis Consortium. Also, you guys are writing a book. So let's get into it. What's happening in the world, starting with the glaringly obvious disruption of supply chains, manufacturing, and economy? Did you guys see this coming?
The U.S. leads the world. We're number one in cat and dog ownership. We're number one in borrowing money. We're
Divorce.
number one in incarceration. Like, what are you talking about? We're doing fine. Like, we in the U.S., we know how to build things like Subway sandwiches. We make a lot of those. Meanwhile, our iPhones are made in other countries. Like, the thing about our industrial sector, the way the world is made, the way that the world is built from its molecular and genetic level all the way through, now is controllable. And we can remake the world one cell at a time. And what opportunity it creates is this ability to go back, not just to advanced manufacturing, but to the raw materials, to remake the raw materials and bring them in bioreactors, essentially, into every country for sort of their own national manufacturing. All you need are the feedstocks. And it's a vision of a way to rebuild the world. Arvind can talk about food sector and materials and everything that's being reinvented. But the whole world gets like a do-over. You know, what we did in the past, how we did industrial manufacturing was just, version 1, 2, and 3. But we get a whole nother way to do it here.
Yeah. I would double down on that, like, to your question, did we see this coming? We saw this coming, but anyone could have seen this coming. All you got to do is look at what rampant capitalism mixed with an industry that was just beginning to be understood came together with goals that were about maximizing profits and lowering marginal cost. And when you do that, you do two things at once. One, you ruin the planet because more people want more goods as more people rise out of poverty. And you have an unsustainable way of providing it until you run out of money at the bank, right? You deplete the natural resources. But two, you create a social, no one talks about this, you create a social issue. And the social issue is, as the marginal cost of goods, the cost of the marginal cost of goods drops and drops and drops, you don't have a natural mechanism, which is labor, of redistributing the profits to the public. And so all those profits go to a fewer number of people. And then those people continue to fund their friends. And you get this concentration of wealth and power in a way the world hasn't seen since the feudal days. And that's the real problem that I see we're heading to. And it's the social technology revolutions cannot happen without a social revolution to go with it, right? The food revolution that's happening right now started with the social revolution of understanding that climate change is upon us, and that the one way that we could actually do something and take an action ourselves to help correct that is through what we eat. And so technology then started to enable those different choices for people. And that's just going to continue to expand. So yeah, we saw this coming. That's why our food portfolio looks the way it does. That's why our fashion and textile portfolio looks the way it does. And that's why it's going to continue, through energy and utilities and the entire, as Poe was saying, every single sector that we consume, that we use, will be reinvented in the next century, not because technology will make it so, but because people will demand it. And therefore, that investment will be made. And so that's what I'm excited by, and that's what Genesis is all about.
And so how does biotech fit into all of this? Explain in the very nuts and bolts of it, because
on a basic level, you have to expand your concept of what biotech is, right? People think of biotech as this subset of the healthcare sector. And the most basic level is to understand, no, we are talking about the physical world. The entire Earth is a biological system. The entire Earth is composed of the same 25 ingredients that humans are made out of. And that that we've been so focused on being knowledge workers and information age people and creating a new digital universe. And we have mastered this digital universe at this incredible neglect of our physical world. The entire global economy essentially does come down to mass. 102 billion pounds of material and mass is sucked up into the global economy. 67 billion tons of it comes out as waste. Only 9 billion tons are reused, and only a small fraction is ending up in the things that we actually use. Everything can be redesigned. The Industrial Revolution of the last 200, 300 years has had a silent partner, which is the chemistry revolution. And we've done things with highly energetic compounds that have been designed with chemistry in kilns of 2,200 degrees that are toxic and tearing the world apart. And we can do it far more elegantly with a room temperature enzyme that is essentially a series of chemistry steps to remanufacture the world. So
remanufacturing the world, I like that. So what are some examples, say, of our current portfolio of IndieBios that can show that is actually possible?
I'm going to talk about the food sector because that's the best place to start.
Yeah, I mean, like here, Memphis Meats, is probably one of the more famous examples of taking literally changing the energy equation to produce the things that we eat. So if we take an egg white or a pound of ground beef, right, products that people know, and we think about the energy required to make those products. You have to take an egg, grow up a chicken, and then that chicken lays an egg, then you crack that egg open, throw away the yolk, and you've got an egg white. If you could modify E. coli or yeast in order to express the proteins that make up an egg white directly from sugar water, you've changed that energy equation to go from something that is very expensive to something that is very inexpensive. And that is the premise by which the entire food sector right now is operating. And I think that's really, really important to understand. So when you see Memphis Meats, same exact thing, or all cell-based meat, same exact thing. Why grow up this animal that has to drink, eat, which also has its own costs to the planet, and then it becomes of age, and then you kill it, you cut it up into pieces, and then you grind up, 1 pound of it to make your pound of ground beef. And then you send it in a cold chain across the country and store it in all these freezers. All of this is emitting massive amounts of energy, right? So someone could buy it at the end. Instead, what if you took a bioreactor and just grew the muscle cells by themselves, potentially even inside the grocery stores themselves one day, or at least nearby, and remove all of that from the supply chain, right? All those energy costs. You drastically change the energy equation, so much so that you could potentially provide everyone with high quality protein, which is what they deserve, without destroying the planet that we all need. So that's going to happen. That fundamental equation that I just explained is going to happen to everything. So cotton, with citrus oils, all the things that we consume that we don't even know we consume oftentimes.
The wood.
There you go. Steel.
The corn that we grow to feed cars. 90% of the corn in Iowa, where does it go? It feeds cars, not humans.
Right.
95% is field corn that feeds, made into biofuels, that is part of that 11% of our gas tank that's ethanol, right? The whole thing can be remade.
Yep.
Bricks can be remade with CO2 in them. Concrete is the second most used industrial material of all mankind after water. And more concrete is being used in the last 4 years in China than the US used the entire last century. Concrete is notoriously huge in emissions, but we can fix that. We can do concrete where it's full of carbonates, where the carbonate is pulled out of the air. And you suck in CO2, split CO from O, put it into carbonates, put it into your concrete. We can fix the world and build it at the same time.
That's right. And it's going to be required because we have huge populations coming out of poverty. I was in China earlier this decade, 2011, and I was watching an entire billion people coming out of poverty, cities being built overnight, literally skylines of cranes. And I stumbled into this town called Yiwu, and I found the world's biggest mall. This mall literally provides all the goods for the New Silk Road. The mall has stores that are storefronts for factories. You could buy anything but in container loads. And I realized at that moment, we needed a new Yiwu. We needed a new Silk Road, one that had a different energy equation than the one I was looking at. And that is the promise of biomanufacturing. And I believe the Yiwu, the new Silk Road of the 21st century, will start in a bioreactor and start in a fermenter.
So is that the path to self-reliance? I know we've been depending a lot on manufacturing from China. Tell me more about this path to self-reliance.
Yeah, self-reliance, let's just put it itself into perspective for a second, right? Every human on earth wants to feel like that they pull some of their own puppet strings, that they're not being pulled by the puppet strings of others. This is a fundamental human need. Everybody respects it, everybody understands. Self-determinism, the capacity to make your own life, that the life you lead, that you had an impact on what that is, that you are not a slave to the economic forces around you, or you are not a candle in the window to the psychological forces around you, right? And in order to everybody, you hear this across our economy, where the US wants to be more self-reliant, but at IndieBio, all of these other countries come to us and they see biomanufacturing as a path to self-reliance. In Israel, in Singapore, in the Philippines, and in Korea, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Chile, everybody is thinking, holy cow, we have been importing everything in the whole MENA region. Everybody's coming to us. We don't have to import everything. We can make it ourselves for the first time in the world. And it's a radical different shift in the global power structure when people are no longer totally dependent upon others. It's scary because it could lead to a world that is more divisive and less connected as well because of it. So but you can begin to see how a social revolution goes with a different new industrial base.
That's right.
So that's a good segue to really hone in on the mission of IndieBio. Arvind, you founded IndieBio about 5 years ago. Do you want to talk about the clear intention you had when starting it?
Yeah, IndieBio's very simple mission is to radically improve human and planetary health. And the goals therein are to extend and improve the human condition and eliminate disease, eliminate suffering, but also to preserve the planet that we're on and provide more products for more people with less impact. And the thing that was always a dichotomy before, right? Before really thinking about using biology to change the equation to basically do something that is impossible, have more with less, that no one was really able to understand that. Now we have a methodology that is able to be reproduced across multiple sectors to go after that mission. So it's a very clear mission, right? It's very simple. Human and planetary health need help. And IndieBio's goal is to bring scientists and equip them with the tools on the business side to take their scientific insight and create a for-profit company, very important that is for-profit company, to be able to address the problems of the market. Because again, like I said, the social revolution is demanding that, and will bring and accept the technology and pay for it. And that's what makes this all sustainable, because no amount of philanthropy can actually provide for everyone on the planet. And that's just a pipe dream. And so it has to be something that solves a fundamental problem in a way that is fundamentally profitable. And that is what we mean by fighting capitalism with better capitalism. And in doing so, saving our own health. The U.S. life expectancy fell for the first time a couple of years ago, up and to the right for as long as we know, and then all of a sudden it just dropped, right? Like, that is a shocking development. As shocking as the amount of CO2 and greenhouse gases going into the atmosphere, and the visible changes that's happening. And human and planetary health are also commingled. In the COVID pandemic that we're all sequestered for right now, and we're doing this on Zoom because of, has its origins in bats. And not many people truly know, it's not widely reported, that bats carry a lot of viruses because they have a pretty darn good immune system. But when they get stressed out, they get sick and can pass that virus on to people. Well, what's stressing out the bats these days? People encroaching on their environments and getting near them and clear-cutting forests in order to make room for other products. And that's causing more crossover events. So all of this is interconnected. And that's the mission of IndieBio, is to get in the way of all of that and provide solutions before it's too late.
This is a good time to bring in a commercial for Decoding the World by Arvind Gupta and Po Bronson, a roadmap for the question on the science of our future, coming to your bookstores on October 6th.
That's so exciting.
Because
pre-order now on Amazon.
Arvind didn't let me talk for a good 2 minutes there. Jump in with the commercial.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, that's the mission of IndieBio.
So now you've handed the reins over to Po Bronson,
Yes.
to be managing director at IndieBio, SOSV, and you have moved on to Mayfield. Before we go into Mayfield's mission, just want to ask Po for a minute. You've been in this position now for a little over a month. You've been with IndieBio for over 2.5 years. What inspires you most about this new role in taking over this big mission for IndieBio?
Maya, when Arvind started this 5.5 years ago, I was a fan. Going back to my years when I was New York Times Magazine writer about Silicon Valley and on the cover of Wired, I wanted to be involved actively in the startup world, but I was always looking for a place that did things that moved my heart, where I could wake up every morning with excitement. The startup life is already kind of exciting, right? But at a certain point, Silicon Valley is filling up with boring-ass startups. And what Arvind was doing and you were doing, it so excited me. And, nothing is changing. Our goal is the same. Our mission is the same. Every year, what is happening is that we're getting very close to those UN Sustainable Development Goals in this timeline around 2030, when people may not understand that 2030 is somehow different than 2035 and different than 2040. With the atmosphere and what we're doing to the oceans, we begin to trigger long-term effects that are irreversible if we don't do things now. So the most important thing about me taking this over and still working with Arvind on it is really about the now and the short period of time. This is something I've always been looking for, but now is the time. Now is what matters. And what it matters that far more of the world's investors, the world's thinkers, the world's media, pays attention more closely and gets involved with this recreation of the world. And if we don't do it now, it's what's so urgent is do it now. And but I wake up every day with incredible excitement about working with our startups, working with our 116 alumni, and that $4 billion portfolio of enterprise that we've launched into the world. And more than anything, to persuade the wider world that this is even possible. That this is even possible, right? A lot of people don't even know that places like IndieBio exist. We're not the only one. We may be the original, but we're not the only. A lot of people have joined this movement. It's a movement together. And with Genesis, we want to bring these people together.
Yes. So I would say that Arvind's move to Mayfield is a huge part of that, adding on to the community who are writing this story together. So Arvind, do you want to talk about Mayfield's mission in the IndieBio space?
Yeah, and beyond, I think, so I moved to Mayfield to co-lead the engineering biology practice, which is, for all intents and purposes, doing the Series A level of human and planetary health. So extending the amount of capital that can be deployed on a yearly basis into human and planetary health. But, I went to Mayfield also because they have a real strong leadership through doing on something that Naveen is calling conscious capitalism. And I'm really excited about that. And I think, it's self-reinforcing when we are talking about human and planetary health and trying to really specifically use biology to solve these problems. What about information technologies? How is that changing society? We're addicting an entire generation to social media because they're the product. And so if the user is the product, well, then by definition, you have to addict them to your platform. Otherwise you have no product. So enabling individuals to do more for themselves and empowering. So I think, Mayfield has the vision of truly investing in these kinds of things. They passed on Yik Yak because they saw it promoted bullying, even though it could have been a big, buzzy social media app. These are the things that, it comes down to values. And I believe conscious capitalism is not going to be a nice to have in the 21st century. It's going to be required to create returns because people will wake up and understand the negative aspects to what the past 20 years of technology have brought. The two sides of the coin. And so we always have to be evolving towards a better future. And it's not to say that, the people that built social media are evil by any means, or the people that built oil companies in the very beginning were evil by any means. They were trying to solve a problem in front of them. And then those solutions created their own ancillary problems. The point of technology and the point of progress is to continually solve the problems that you're being faced with, right? So that's what's exciting to me about Mayfield. And in the very long run, lead a sea change on Sand Hill Road. Because Sand Hill Road and Silicon Valley is a highly levered place where a huge amount of money goes through and literally creates the future that we use, right? And it does through the mechanism of capitalism. And that's why I say we do not fight the future of capitalism with philanthropy. We fight it with better capitalism. And I think we at Mayfield can help lead the rest of Sand Hill Road on that mission.
I love that. That's super inspiring. So now we've got these two big players, SOSV, IndieBio, Mayfield. They've come together to create the Genesis Consortium. Can you explain a little bit about what that is and who that's meant to include?
Yeah, I'll go for it.
When we're talking about Genesis Consortium, we want to partition a little bit between, say, the investment vehicle and the community. On the investment vehicle, the focus here is to provide scientists at the very early stages with very small amount of capital, additional capital. But it may not be a lot of money. We're talking about per startup, anywhere from $250,000 to $100,000 in additional capital. But it's so incredibly vital and precious for them because it'll allow them to truly have made the progress to be seed round worthy and move on through the world. So we would love investors who are aligned with our interests and our values to talk to us about being able to come in at our startups at a very early level to provide this. So many investors have been able to wanting to invest with IndieBio, and there's never been a chance to do that. This is sort of the first time. As a community, at IndieBio, we promote our vast number of startups, but we don't get to promote, at Genesis Consortium, we get to promote and create a tent around everybody in the Valley, everybody in the community who is creating these solutions for human and planetary health, to create programming, events, insights around it and bring people together and expand those networks.
That's right. And it's really about, participation. Real movements are participatory. Silicon Valley tends to try to be exclusionary in order to create stature, right? We don't care about that. We care that everyone participates and everyone profits, right? Capitalism for everyone is really what's important here. And capitalism for everyone sharing profits, but also sharing the benefits. And if you can't be involved on a capital level, you could be involved on a grassroots level. We want no one left behind on this.
And certainly we can all be involved in the conversation, which leads me to this book you both have written, and something that stuck with me in the very beginning chapters, which was, it's not that we don't have the solutions. We have the solutions, we just haven't agreed on how to solve them together. And so let's talk about this book.
So the book, Decoding the World, is a buddy story. And I know we're talking about global problems and technological solutions, but the book is actually a buddy story. And in the tradition of buddy stories, it begins with me coming to IndieBio, and it ends with Arvind leaving IndieBio, though he hasn't really left. But, going to Mayfield. Yeah. And in that 2-year time frame, we are writing about our intellectual and global adventures to try to recruit scientists, understand at the deepest level, not just solutions to the world and from a technological perspective, but understand and revisit classical philosophical questions, which is like, when did life start and how did it start? What is the meaning of life? Just like, are we going to run out of natural resources on this planet?
Where is the soul?
Where is the soul? Yeah.
I think that's that's what's so for me beautiful about it is about the human condition, and the planet and our health and all of these things are a part of that. But really, these are questions that we all have, and we explore it from a fairly unique point of view. And that's what makes it a universal book to read.
It's wonderful. I can't wait to read my copy, which I have. Is there anything else you want to add to this conversation?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to say a few more things about the book really quickly, because it's so fun. Because I want to explain, like, I dared Arvind in one chapter to explain quantum computers, not to me, not even to the reader, but to 2 professional UFC fighters. And he did it. And there's a photo in the book of him doing it in a ring, explaining it to UFC fighters. The book is a lot of fun, and it's full of our text messages back and forth. It has cartoons. Every chapter takes a gotcha news headline, the kind of thing you wake up to every day. There it is, and you can't believe what you're reading. And it takes those kind of headlines and it riffs off of it. The middle of the book is full of philosophical dictums. And Arvind writes about his life as a base jumper.
That's right. Yes. So, and I think that's the other part, right? Like, again, it really is about the human condition through questions and through firsthand experience. I think the most important thing is it's not book knowledge. Yes. I've eaten dinosaur is a dictum. Yeah. And there's plenty of books that will teach you about biology. They're called textbooks, right? This is not a textbook. This is about what real people are doing and the troubles and challenges they face and how they're overcoming them. And all of this comes back to weave together into an overarching story. And I won't tell you the end. You can read that for yourself. But I think I'm excited for bringing this idea, what we're doing, and the potential of where the world is going and where it can go, and have humanity win. It's a very uplifting book. That's kind of the end. But technology doesn't have to win, right? Technology serves humanity, and there is a way for that to continue. Because there's a lot of concern right now that won't continue, that in the end humans will serve technology. And so this book is the beginning of a blueprint of documenting, or of creating it and documenting how that path is being won.
But I think it's really important to characterize this point. Because in the years before I was coming to IndieBio, I was watching how the world was changing and converging, and all these super mega trends were happening at the same time. And it was making a doom and gloom perspective for me. And I was wondering about the plan. What is the plan? Who has a plan that can solve things? When I came to IndieBio, I discovered something different, which is there is no plan, just a way. And that we have a way of doing a high rate of experimentation to learn, that there are levels of wisdom you can reach from doing that you can't access just by studying or sort of observing from a distance. And that this experimental way towards the future was highly needed in a very adaptive way to get us through this bottleneck that the future seems to be.
So you mentioned a bottleneck. Your book is being released in October, a month just short of our elections in the United States. And I would say that the work we're doing here is very focused on the betterment of the planet. It's not about politics. It's about humanity coming together to solve the world's biggest challenges today. So I think it's really important for us all to focus on what's important. And these efforts that you both have been doing have been really drawing attention to how we're all unified in a common challenge. So I think that's a really good place to begin, not end. This is the beginning of a really incredible journey. So thank you both for being here. And I urge you to check out the Genesis Consortium, IndieBio, the work of Mayfield and SOSV, and our many, many more partners that we hope to bring on in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, and you're very welcome. Yeah, I appreciate all the work you've done as well. And I know you've been working tirelessly spreading the message throughout Silicon Valley as well. So it takes a village. It may take an entire world village to do this, but we won't stop until that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maya.